Rise of the Tomb Raider.
Oh no, they're already here.
Alright, let's talk about Rise of the Tomb Raider, a game you really should play before you die. Made by Crystal Dynamics and released in 2015, this game follows Lara Croft on another epic adventure. You play as Lara, an archaeologist and adventurer, searching for the legendary city of Kaitish. Imagine exploring snowy mountains, ancient tombs, and lush forests. The graphics are stunning, making every environment look real and exciting. The game's world is full of secrets, hidden artifacts, and treasures waiting to be discovered. Lara is on a quest to find an artifact that grants immortality, racing against a dangerous organization called Trinity. The characters are well developed and the voice acting is top-notch, bringing the story to life. Gameplay is a mix of action, exploration, and puzzles. You'll climb, swim, and jump through challenging environments. The combat is fun, with a variety of weapons and stealth options. The puzzles are clever and rewarding, making you think and explore every nook and cranny. What I love about Rise of the Tomb Raider is how it balances action and exploration. You feel like a true adventurer, discovering ancient secrets and solving mysteries. The tombs are especially cool, with intricate designs and hidden dangers. If you haven't played Rise of the Tomb Raider yet, you're missing out on a fantastic adventure. It's a must-play for anyone who loves action, exploration, and a great story. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Alright, let's talk about The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, a game that's an absolute must-play before you kick the bucket. Developed by CD Projekt Red and released in 2015, this game is an epic adventure set in a beautifully detailed open world. You play as Geralt of Rivia, a grizzled monster hunter with a dry wit and a heart of gold, navigating a world full of danger, magic, and political intrigue. So, what makes The Witcher 3 so special? First off, the world is massive and stunningly crafted. From the bustling streets of Novigrad to the eerie swamps of Velen, every location feels alive and full of stories waiting to be discovered. You can easily lose yourself for hours just exploring, finding hidden treasures, and stumbling upon random events that make the world feel real. The story is another highlight. It's deep, complex, and filled with memorable characters. Geralt is on a quest to find his adopted daughter, Ciri, while dealing with the ominous threat of the Wild Hunt. Along the way, you'll meet all sorts of interesting folks, each with their own stories and problems. The dialogue is sharp, and your choices genuinely matter, affecting the world and how people react to you. Combat in The Witcher 3 is a mix of swordplay, magic, and strategy. It's challenging but super rewarding once you get the hang of it. You can use Geralt's Witcher senses to track monsters, brew potions for buffs, and craft gear to make you more powerful. The monsters you face are varied and require different tactics, keeping the combat fresh and exciting. The game also features two amazing expansions, Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine, which add even more content and depth to the experience. These aren't just tacked on extras, they're full-blown adventures that rival the main game in quality. For me, The Witcher 3 is like playing through a fantastic fantasy novel. The world is so rich and immersive, the characters are unforgettable, and the story keeps you hooked from start to finish. It's one of those games that you'll think about long after you finish playing. If you haven't played The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt yet, you're missing out on one of the best gaming experiences ever. It's a game that sets the bar for what an open world RPG can be, and it's definitely one you should play before you die.
Let me finish telling it.
Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. Alright, let's talk about Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. This is a game you really need to play before you die. Made by Naughty Dog and released in 2016, this game is all about adventure and treasure hunting. You play as Nathan Drake, a retired treasure hunter who gets pulled back into the action. Picture yourself exploring beautiful, exotic places from lush jungles to ancient ruins. The graphics are stunning, making every location look like a postcard. It's a blast just climbing, swimming, and discovering hidden treasures. The story is fantastic. Nathan Drake is trying to settle down, but his brother Sam shows up with a new adventure. The characters are great with awesome voice acting that makes you care about their journey. The dialogue is funny and heartfelt, making the story even better. Gameplay is super fun. You've got action-packed shootouts, tricky puzzles, and epic chase scenes. The climbing and exploring feels smooth and natural. Each level is different, keeping the game exciting from start to finish. What I love about Uncharted 4 is how it mixes action and story. The game feels like a blockbuster movie with big set pieces and emotional moments. It's not just about shooting and climbing, it's about the characters and their relationships. For me, playing Uncharted 4 is like being in an Indiana Jones movie. The adventure is thrilling, the story is touching, and it's just so much fun to play. It's a game that sticks with you long after you've finished it. If you haven't played Uncharted 4: A Thief's End yet, you're missing out on an incredible adventure. It's a must-play for anyone who loves action and a great story. Final Fantasy 15. This one is like, where should I even start? The 15th part was my entry into the series. I have always liked Noctis' style and outfit, which kinda made me hooked. Also, we can never forget about the visuals and cutscenes. I don't know about you guys, but even before playing the game, I did watch some clips and cutscenes which made me go crazy as I felt as though the visuals are really taken up a notch here. The game is a blend of stunning environments, an engaging storyline, some decent boss battles, and the soundtracks. It's actually a road trip with your best buddies, but in a world filled with magic, massive monsters, and an epic storyline. Short story is that you play as a prince, heir to the throne, and you're on a journey to save your kingdom from the evil empire. Somewhere around that you also learn a lot of things and become worthy of a king. I'm not gonna lie, it's absolutely a great game to dive into and could also be a nice choice to step into the Final Fantasy series as you don't need any prior knowledge of the previous titles. The entire journey feels like a blast as you'll be entering so many different places and the game's depth increases because you have an entire team with you. These are not your normal NPCs, they feel like real friends. Their banter, the way they interact, the way everyone has some special skills. The game does a great job of making you feel like you're on this grand adventure, plus you get to drive around in this slick car called the Regalia. It's like the ultimate road trip vehicle and you can customize it, listen to classic Final Fantasy tunes while cruising, and just take in the beautiful scenery. Quantum Break. Similar game to Control. Both games share the concept of sci-fi powers. You could say that Control is more of an updated graphics game, while Quantum is like a movie where you have the power to control time. You get these crazy time-bending powers after a science experiment goes wrong. Typical plot, I know. You can do so much more in this game. You can freeze time, dodge bullets like you're in the Matrix, and even stop enemies in their tracks with time bubbles. It's a blast figuring out how to use these abilities in combat, especially when you're surrounded by a bunch of enemies. What really makes Quantum Break different is how the game is split between gameplay and live action episodes. After each act, you get these 20-minute live action episodes that dive deeper into the story, showing you what's happening with the other characters. It's a unique experience because your choices in the game actually affect the episodes. If you like what you have seen so far, then don't hesitate to dive in. Sleeping Dogs. One of my favorite underrated games. I don't know why we never got a sequel. I see no reason for it. Anyways, for those of you who don't know, Sleeping Dogs is an open world game where you explore the city of Hong Kong. You play as an undercover cop but are still in touch with the triads. The way you balance everything and help the police while staying loyal to the triads is nothing short of amazing. Also, we can never forget the awesome martial arts you can do combined with the parkour moves. For real, these two are my only favorite things from the game.
Realizing I should have never dropped out of art school. I could have made it. I could have been a real somebody. Thank you for showing me the light, officer.
I want to give you a chance, Shen, but you have to work with me.
Even though the open world is jam-packed and offers a lot of side content, plus there's also an engaging story, I can't help myself but appreciate the combat and parkour. The game has everything in it. You'll feel right at home if you love open world games such as GTA, Yakuza, Shenmue. Sleeping Dogs is a perfect choice to revisit in 2024. You'll be surprised how it still maintains its charm. The definitive edition is the one you should go for. Uncharted 2 Among Thieves. Uncharted series has always been my favorite. Almost every mainstream installment is perfect. The series portrayed a great main character and showed us his struggles and epic moments. You can't help but feel thankful to the developers for making such a great game with perfect storyline and great characters. Also, the fourth part is the best one as it gives a tribute to Nathan Drake's journey. However, the second part is when the game really got popular.
Oh, what?
She broke your heart.
Oh, please.
She did.
Hey, you know what?
She?
Maybe I broke hers.
Oh, yes, Casanova.
The developers did some amazing work and shocked the fans. It's like they were telling us that yes, we can make a game like this. Among Thieves was pretty amazing and full of great cutscenes. Guns blasting everywhere, enemies getting shot, parkour moves, multiple weapons, helicopters. The game was way ahead of its time. I remember being blown away by how the game starts with that insane train sequence. You can't help but get hooked right from the start. Nathan Drake's charm really shines and the chemistry between the characters is spot on, making you care about what happens to them.
The one in the middle of all the gunfire and explosions.
Lucky us.
Nate, that's right where Lazarevich is camped. I was hoping we'd be headed in the opposite direction.
Well, desperate times, right?
Watch Dogs. Give it a few years and I'm sure no one is going to talk about this take. It's a hard take, but for some reason I guess a lot of players are forgetting about the original Watch Dogs. I don't know what to say exactly. The series had great potential. The first game was awesome. The sequel was kinda off, but it still served as a decent Watch Dogs experience. Legion is where everything got messed up. I guess maybe the developers never decided to make another game because of how bad the response was for Legion.
Who was on the other end of the call? Give me a name.
They never gave me a name!
I'll tell you her name. Lena Pierce.
Not gonna lie, I'm one of those who considers the original game as the best Watch Dogs. It's got a great story, engaging open world, smooth hacking mechanics, great main character, and good enough graphics. On some level, we can also relate with the main character as he's basically a normal human, with the only difference that he knows hacking. Finally, the storyline deserves appreciation as it certainly matched the gameplay and provided the finest experiences. The game had a great sense of originality and nostalgia. Every moment was precious. You could hack anything such as ATM, cell phones, traffic lights, and so much more. Hacking was the core mechanic, and it enhanced the open world. Mad Max. Alright, Mad Max, now there's a game that kind of snuck up on everyone. You'd think, hey, it's a movie tie-in, how good could it be? But nah, this game is way more than that. It's like Avalanche Studios took the chaotic energy of the Mad Max films and just ran wild with it, delivering this gritty, dusty sandbox that's somehow both bleak and beautiful at the same time. You play as Max, and if you're familiar with the movies, you already know what to expect: a man of few words, a whole lot of rage, and a burning desire to survive in a world that's lost its mind. The game's got you roaming the wasteland in your souped up car, the Magnum Opus, which you can customize to the nines. And let's be honest, the car combat is where this game really shines. There's something ridiculously satisfying about ramming enemy vehicles off the road, harpooning their tires, and watching them spiral out of control in a cloud of dust and metal. But what surprised me most is how much fun the hand-to-hand combat is. It's got this brutal, visceral feel. You're not just punching dudes, you're brawling, throwing haymakers, and countering like you're in a street fight for your life. Every hit has weight, and when Max delivers that final bone-crunching blow, you feel it. Plus, the combat is seamlessly tied to Max's whole lone wolf in a cruel world vibe, no fancy moves, just pure survival instinct. Now, the wasteland itself is a character in its own right. It's massive, desolate, and honestly kind of haunting. I didn't expect to be this into a barren desert, but the game does a fantastic job of making the environment feel alive, with little details, ruins of old world relics, dust storms that roll in like something out of a nightmare, and scavenging sites that make you feel like you're piecing together the lost story of a dead world. The more you explore, the more you feel like you're part of this weird post-apocalyptic tapestry. And yeah, there's plenty of the usual open world stuff, enemy camps to clear out, races to win, collectibles to find, but somehow it doesn't feel like filler here. There's this sense of purpose in everything you do because it's all about survival, building up your car, and taking down the warlords that rule the wasteland with iron fists. You're not just ticking off boxes on a checklist, you're out there scavenging for fuel, scrap, and ammo because you need it, and that makes all the difference. The game's story might not win any awards, but it's got enough of that raw, apocalyptic flavor to keep you hooked. Max isn't looking for redemption or some noble cause, he just wants his damn car back, and maybe a little peace, or as much peace as a guy like Max can ever hope for. You're not saving the world, you're just trying to carve out your own little piece of it, and I kind of love that. There are definitely moments where the game shows its rough edges, and maybe it doesn't quite reach the emotional highs of something like The Last of Us or Red Dead Redemption 2. But you know what? Not every game has to. Sometimes you just want to be a badass in a leather jacket, speeding through the desert, blowing up enemy convoys, and taking down psychopaths with a shotgun. And for that, Mad Max absolutely delivers. If you're looking for a single-player game that gives you a world to lose yourself in, where every road feels like a battle and every quiet moment is haunted by the threat of what's lurking over the horizon, give Mad Max a spin. It's raw, it's rough, and it's an absolute blast. Metro Redux. Alright, let's dive into Metro Redux. It's kind of mind-blowing that this gem is celebrating its 10-year mark. If you're into post-apocalyptic settings with a side of intense survival horror, this one's a classic. It's essentially a re-release of Metro 2033 and Metro Last Light, polished up with new graphics and gameplay tweaks. The original Metro 2033 dropped us into the grim, underground world of the Moscow metro system, where humanity's left clinging to life after a nuclear apocalypse. You're not just fighting mutants and hostile survivors, you're also dealing with the claustrophobic, eerie atmosphere that makes every step feel like a gamble. Then you've got Metro Last Light, which continues the story with a bit more action but retains that same gritty, immersive feel. The Redux bundle updates both games with improved visuals and gameplay enhancements that make them feel fresh even a decade later. What's cool about the Redux version is how it keeps the core of what made the original games stand out while smoothing out some of the rough edges. The flashlight mechanics, gas mask maintenance, and resource scarcity create this palpable tension that really hooks you in. And the story, oh man, it's dark and thought-provoking with characters and choices that really hit home. So if you're into a deep, atmospheric experience and missed these games the first time around, the Redux collection is a solid pick. It's a reminder of how good the Metro series has always been, and how well it holds up with a bit of polish and refinement. Wolfenstein: The New Order. Wolfenstein: The New Order is a perfect example of how to breathe new life into a classic franchise. 10 years old now, this game made a huge splash in 2014 by reimagining the Wolfenstein series with a fresh perspective and a whole lot of punch. Set in an alternate history where the Nazis won World War II, the game drops you into a dystopian nightmare filled with futuristic weaponry and oppressive regimes. You play as BJ Blazkowicz, a grizzled soldier trying to take down the Nazi regime with a mix of sheer muscle and a surprisingly deep narrative. The story here is pretty remarkable. It's not just about blowing up bad guys though, there's plenty of that. It's also about exploring the personal struggles of Blazkowicz as he navigates a world where hope is in short supply. The game weaves in some genuinely touching moments and strong character development, which is something you might not expect from a shooter.
Come in, Berlin. What's your status?
We're in bad shape, Captain.
The gameplay is a blast literally. You've got a range of weapons at your disposal, from classic guns to some truly outlandish stuff that feels like it belongs in a sci-fi movie. The combat is intense and satisfying, and the level design is top-notch, offering a variety of ways to tackle each mission. You can go full Rambo or sneak around and take down enemies quietly, it's up to you. Visually, the game holds up well with its gritty, stylized aesthetic that fits the alternate history setting perfectly. And the soundtrack? It's a blast, pumping up the adrenaline as you tear through the ranks of the Nazi army. Wolfenstein: The New Order might be a decade old, but it's still a fantastic ride. It's a reminder of how well classic franchises can be revitalized with a mix of great storytelling and solid gameplay. If you haven't played it yet, or if it's been a while since you last did, it's definitely worth revisiting. Infamous Second Son. Infamous Second Son turns 10 this year, and it's a great time to look back at this gem of an open world game. Launched in 2014, it was a PlayStation 4 launch title that managed to show off the new console's capabilities in some pretty impressive ways. In this game, you step into the shoes of Delsin Rowe, a guy who suddenly discovers he has superpowers. Delsin's abilities are all about controlling different elements, smoke, neon, and video, among others. Each power has its own set of moves and perks, which makes gameplay really diverse and engaging. Plus, the visual effects when you're using these powers are nothing short of stunning. The story is set in a near future Seattle, and while it does tread some familiar superhero territory, government conspiracies, moral dilemmas, and the whole with great power comes great responsibility shtick, it's done with a lot of style. Delsin is a pretty interesting protagonist with a mix of charm and rebelliousness that keeps things entertaining, and the game gives you choices that actually matter, affecting how the story unfolds and how characters react to you. The open world of Seattle is not just a backdrop but a playground. Climbing walls, running across rooftops, and using your powers to navigate the city make for a dynamic experience. The side missions are pretty fun, and there's a lot to do if you like collecting stuff and exploring. Graphically, Infamous Second Son was a stunner back in the day, showcasing the PS4's power with detailed environments and flashy effects. The soundtrack and voice acting are also top-notch, adding to the overall immersive experience. Overall, Infamous Second Son holds up well after a decade. It's a fun ride with great powers, a solid story, and an impressive open world to explore. If you're into superhero games or just looking for a good time with some cool powers, this one's worth checking out. Beyond Two Souls. This game, created by Quantic Dream, is like an interactive movie with some really intriguing elements. It's been a bit of a mixed bag for some, but there's definitely something special about it. You follow the life of Jodie Holmes, who has a unique psychic connection to an invisible entity named Aiden. The story dives into Jodie's life from childhood to adulthood, with a lot of focus on her struggles and the supernatural events tied to her connection with Aiden. It's all about emotional depth and personal experience, and the narrative unfolds in a non-linear fashion, so you're jumping between different moments of Jodie's life, piecing together her story as you go.
But they know only you know how to deal with what lies beyond the rift.
Open the passage?
Gameplay-wise, it's a mix of quick-time events and exploration. You'll be making decisions that affect how the story unfolds, but a lot of the experience is about being immersed in the narrative rather than traditional game mechanics. The supernatural elements add a unique twist, with Aiden's abilities allowing you to interact with the environment in ways that are both fascinating and sometimes a bit puzzling. Visually, the game has a cinematic quality with impressive graphics and a soundtrack that complements the emotional tone of the story. It's not the most action-packed game out there, but it makes up for it with a compelling narrative and a deep dive into Jodie's life. If you're into games that focus heavily on story and character, Beyond Two Souls is worth checking out. It might not be for everyone, especially if you're looking for traditional gameplay, but its narrative richness and emotional depth make it a standout piece in the interactive drama genre.
The test is over. You need to...
Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. If you've somehow missed Shadow of Mordor in the last decade, now's the perfect time to see what all the fuss was about. Released back in 2014, this game managed to make waves with its unique blend of Tolkien's universe and some seriously innovative gameplay mechanics. At its core, Shadow of Mordor is an action-adventure game set in the richly detailed world of Middle-earth, but it's not just another trip through the Shire or Rivendell. You're stepping into the shoes of Talion, a ranger with a tragic backstory involving a slaughtered family and a magical bond with a wraith. This connection gives you some pretty wild abilities and sets the stage for a revenge-fueled quest. One of the game's standout features is the Nemesis system. It's this clever mechanic that creates a dynamic world where orc captains and warlords remember your past encounters. If you get killed by an orc or run into one again after a while, they'll recognize you, mock you for your previous defeat, and may even have risen in the ranks. It's a cool way to make each encounter feel personal and impactful. The combat system is fluid and satisfying, drawing heavy inspiration from Batman Arkham series, but with its own twist. You'll find yourself stringing together slick combos and using a range of abilities to take down hordes of enemies. It's fast-paced and visually impressive, making every battle feel intense. Exploration in Shadow of Mordor is pretty engaging, with plenty of side quests and collectibles to keep you busy. The world is designed with verticality in mind, allowing you to climb and traverse the environment in a way that adds a lot to the gameplay experience. Plus, the story, while not reinventing the wheel, is solid and ties well into the broader lore of Middle-earth. Graphically, the game still holds up surprisingly well. The environments are gritty and atmospheric, capturing the dark and menacing tone of Mordor effectively. Character models and animations have aged, but the overall presentation is still immersive. The game's strength lies in its innovative systems and engaging combat, making it a memorable entry in the action-adventure genre. If you're a fan of Tolkien's world or just love a good open-world game with some fresh mechanics, Shadow of Mordor is definitely worth a look. It's a fun, action-packed experience that's aged well and remains a standout title in the last decade. Batman Arkham Knight. Batman Arkham Knight is the third and final chapter in Rocksteady's critically acclaimed Arkham series, and it's a game that, despite being a decade old, still leaves a lasting impression. Released in 2015, it closed out the trilogy with a bang, delivering a game that truly felt like a grand finale. The game picks up where Arkham City left off, with Gotham City in chaos and Batman facing one of his most dangerous foes, yet the mysterious Arkham Knight. This new antagonist has a personal vendetta against the Dark Knight and brings a fresh layer of tension and mystery to the story. From the get-go, Arkham Knight is visually stunning. The open-world Gotham City is expansive and detailed, and you'll find yourself lost in the dark, rain-soaked streets, teeming with activity. The game's graphics were top-notch for its time, and while some elements may look dated now, the atmosphere and design still managed to captivate. The combat system, which Rocksteady perfected in the previous games, is as fluid and exhilarating as ever. You'll be diving into combat sequences that are both fast-paced and satisfying, chaining together attacks and using gadgets to outsmart and overpower enemies. There's something undeniably thrilling about taking down a group of thugs while gracefully flipping through the air. One of the most significant additions to Arkham Knight is the Batmobile. It's a cool concept. In theory, you can now speed through Gotham and engage in high-octane vehicular combat. While it's a blast to drive around, the Batmobile's frequent use in combat and puzzle solving can feel a bit overdone, and some might find it a bit of a distraction from the core Batman experience. The narrative is a strong point of the game, offering a deep dive into Batman's world and relationships. The Arkham Knight himself is a well-crafted villain with a compelling backstory, and the game provides satisfying conclusions to various plot threads established in the previous games. The voice acting, led by the always impressive Kevin Conroy as Batman, is top tier and adds significant depth to the story. While the game did receive some criticism for its overuse of the Batmobile and a few repetitive side missions, it still stands as a solid conclusion to the Arkham series. In the sense of scale, the richly detailed world, and the epic story make Arkham Knight a memorable title that's worth revisiting even after all these years. In short, if you're a fan of Batman or just looking for a well-crafted open-world game with engaging combat and a gripping story, story, Batman Arkham Knight is definitely worth your time. It may be a decade old, but it's still a standout experience that showcases Rocksteady's knack for creating immersive superhero adventures. Ryse, Son of Rome. Okay, let's dive into Ryse, Son of Rome, a game that's like the epic action movie of video games, complete with all the gladiatorial grandeur you could ask for. It's got that big cinematic vibe written all over it. Picture this, you're a Roman soldier fighting through the ancient world, all while the game tries to give you the most dramatic and over-the-top experience possible. First off, the visuals, man, they're pretty stunning, especially for when it came out. The game was a launch title for the Xbox One, so it's got that early next-gen sheen. The environments and character models look like they've been pulled straight from a Hollywood blockbuster. The blood and gore are right up there with the best of them, making every fight look like a brutal ballet. Now, the combat, it's pretty much the definition of button mashing with a few more bells and whistles. You've got this whole press the right buttons at the right time mechanic going on, which can be both satisfying and a bit repetitive. It's cool at first, feeling like you're right in the middle of a grand arena, but it can start to feel a little monotonous as the game goes on. The story. Well, it's a classic revenge tale. You're fighting for justice and glory in the midst of political intrigue and betrayal. It's not exactly breaking new ground, but it's engaging enough to keep you invested. The voice acting and motion capture do a decent job of bringing the drama to life. Even if the plot sometimes feels like it's borrowing from every epic historical drama you've ever seen. One of the highlights is definitely the finishers, those brutal, over-the-top kill moves that let you take down enemies in style. They never get old, and there's something inherently satisfying about watching your character deliver the final blow in such a cinematic fashion. Overall, Ryse, Son of Rome is like that really flashy action movie you watch for the spectacle rather than the substance. It's a fun ride, and if you're into big dramatic battles and don't mind a bit of repetition, it's worth checking out. Just go in with the mindset that it's more about the spectacle than groundbreaking gameplay. Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Deus Ex Mankind Divided is one of those games that kind of slipped through the cracks for a lot of people, and that's a real shame because it's got a ton going for it. If you're into cyberpunk, you'll feel right at home with this one. The game's set in a world that's both neon-soaked and gritty, filled with a mix of high-tech and low-life that just oozes atmosphere. You play as Adam Jensen, a guy who's undergone some serious cybernetic upgrades and is now navigating a future where augmented humans are basically second-class citizens. The game's story dives into some heavy themes about discrimination and societal divide, and it does so with a level of depth that's pretty impressive. It's like they took everything we love about cyberpunk and put it into one game. What I love about Mankind Divided is how flexible it is. You can approach missions in so many different ways. Want to sneak around, hack your way through, or just blast everything in sight, go for it. It's got that play your way vibe that makes each playthrough feel fresh. There's something really satisfying about finding your own path through a mission and seeing how your choices impact the world. The world building is top notch. The city of Prague feels alive and gritty with tons of detail that makes it feel authentic. But here's the catch: the game can get a bit overwhelming. There's a lot of lore and political drama, and sometimes it feels like the story gets lost in its own complexity. It's cool if you're into deep narratives, but it might be a bit much if you're just looking for straightforward action. Visually, the game looks great. The neon lights, the shadows, and the dark alleyways all create a really immersive experience. That said, it does have its repetitive moments. Some side missions can start to feel like they're all blending together, and a few technical issues pop up now and then. Where Mankind Divided really shines is in its character interactions. Jensen's conversations with other characters are well written and add a lot of depth to the story. The game's moral choices are thought-provoking, and they make you really think about the impact of your decisions. So, if you missed out on Deus Ex Mankind Divided when it came out, I'd say give it a shot if you're into cyberpunk and enjoy games that let you shape your own path. It's got its flaws, but it also has a lot of cool stuff going on that's definitely worth checking out. It's one of those games that might not have made a huge splash, but it's a hidden gem for sure. The Order 1886. The Order 1886 is one of those games that's often brought up in conversations about overlooked gems or underappreciated titles. It's set in a beautifully crafted alternate history London where you're a member of an elite order fighting against supernatural threats. The atmosphere is one of the game's strongest suits, blending Victorian-era aesthetics with steampunk elements to create a visually stunning experience. The game's presentation is top-notch. From the detailed character models to the richly designed environment, it's clear that a lot of care went into making everything look impressive. The lighting, textures, and overall design make London feel like a living, breathing city caught in a dark and mysterious time. It's a bit like stepping into a high-end period drama, but with monsters and a lot of action. Speaking of action, The Order 1886 delivers a solid gameplay experience. The cover-based shooting mechanics are smooth and engaging, with a variety of weapons that fit the steampunk theme. There's a good mix of combat and exploration, and while it's not the most innovative in terms of gameplay, it does what it sets out to do quite well. Where the game really shines, though, is its story and presentation. The narrative is steeped in intrigue and conspiracy, revolving around a secret society dealing with supernatural threats. It's a bit linear, but the characters are well developed and the plot twists keep things interesting. The voice acting and motion capture are top-notch, making the story feel more immersive and engaging. However, The Order 1886 does have its share of shortcomings. One major point of contention is its length. The game is relatively short, clocking in at around 8 to 10 hours, and it's structured more like a cinematic experience than a sprawling adventure. Some players felt it was too brief for the price and wished there had been more content. Additionally, while the visuals are impressive, they can sometimes overshadow the gameplay. The game is very much focused on its narrative and presentation, which means that the actual gameplay mechanics can feel a bit repetitive. It's a bit like watching a great movie that you wish had more interactive elements. Despite these flaws, The Order 1886 is a game that offers a unique experience with its atmospheric setting and compelling story. If you're a fan of narrative-driven games with strong visuals and don't mind a more linear experience, it's definitely worth checking out. It might not be a perfect 10 out of 10, but it's a solid example of a game that deserves more attention than it often gets. The Last of Us Part 1. The Last of Us Part 1 is one of those rare games that isn't just a game, it's an experience. Even if you're not typically into post-apocalyptic settings, this one will grab you by the heart and refuse to let go. It's been around for a while now, but whether you're playing the original or the recent remake, it still holds up as one of the most gripping, emotionally charged stories ever told in gaming. It's not just another zombie game. The Last of Us is all about the characters. Ellie, a teenage girl who's immune to the infection and who just might hold the key to saving the world. The relationship between Joel and Ellie is the core of this game. It's raw, complicated, and evolves in ways that feel painfully real. Joel's not just some hardened badass, he's a broken man dealing with the loss of his daughter, and Ellie, she's tough, funny, vulnerable, and probably one of the most well-written characters you'll ever meet in a game. Their dynamic is the heart of everything, and it's the kind of relationship that sticks with you long after the credits roll. What really sets The Last of Us apart, though, is its storytelling. It's intense, it's gritty, and it doesn't shy away from the harsh realities of this world. This isn't a game where you just mow down enemies and feel like a hero. Every encounter feels dangerous and desperate. You're scavenging for supplies, crafting makeshift weapons, and always trying to survive. There's this constant tension where you feel like you're one wrong move away from getting overwhelmed by either the infected or, more often than not, other humans. The way Naughty Dog pulls off that balance between action, survival, and story is nothing short of masterful. Visually, The Last of Us is a work of art, especially in the remake. The level of detail in the environments, from crumbling buildings overtaken by nature to the haunting abandoned streets, is insane. It's this beautiful yet terrifying world where danger lurks around every corner, and the character animations, it's unreal how expressive and lifelike they are, especially during the emotional scenes. It really helps drive home the weight of the story when you can see every nuance in their facial expressions. The combat itself itself is another area where the game shines. It's brutal and unforgiving, but it never feels over the top. Every bullet counts, every melee attack is desperate, and stealth is often your best friend. But what really stands out is how the combat serves the story. It's not there just to give you something to do. Between cutscenes, it feels like part of Joel's and Ellie's journey, adding to the tension and stakes. And let's be honest, the clickers, absolutely terrifying. The sound design alone is enough to make you break out in a cold sweat when you hear them nearby. But what makes The Last of Us Part 1 truly perfect is how it lingers with you long after you've finished it. It's not just a game about survival, it's about what it means to hold on to your humanity in a world that's lost its way. It's about the choices we make, the people we love, and the sacrifices we're willing to endure. The ending, don't even get me started. It's one of the most talked about finales in gaming history, and for good reason. It leaves you questioning everything and feeling all kinds of emotions at once. If you haven't played The Last of Us yet, you absolutely should. It's more than just a game, it's a story that demands to be experienced.